Hello everybody, my name is Stephanie Bree. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm doing a series of videos on home video formats. I'm starting with video cassettes, the tapes. This is part one, the tapes. This is not an exhaustive video. I am not a Wikipedia article, and this is not a documentary or a history channel. This is just a vlog, and I just want to talk about what I know about video cassettes. Just for fun, just to share what I know and to talk about my personal experiences. So the formats I will be talking about are North American formats, so no Video 2000 and nothing that was exclusive to Asia or Japan or any PAL territories. I don't know anything about them. I know Video 2000 exists and that it was either UK or PAL exclusive. I don't know specifically which one, so that's as much as I know about it, which is very little. So the formats we're going to focus on are Sony's Betamax, JVC's VHS, Sony's ED Betamax, JVC's Super VHS, and D Theater or Digital VHS, and the High 8 Video 8mm cassette tape. Those are the ones we're going to focus on. We will touch on briefly home movie or camcorder formats, but that's a whole nother video for another day I am working on. So it starts, and there were, other tapes before this, but commercially it starts with the release of Betamax. And I don't remember when, because I wasn't alive back then, and I don't have the Wikipedia article in front of me. But it starts in the mid to late 70s. You get Betamax. And within a year or less of Betamax getting released, you have VHS released. I'm not here to dispel myths or get into the weeds. I'm just going to talk about them on a surface level. So this isn't going to be a beta versus VHS debate, or why did beta fail, why did VHS succeed. This is not, I'm not getting into that. We're just talking about the tapes and what you could do with them. So initially, Betamax tapes were 1 hour long. And then they released 2-hour tapes, 3-hour tapes, and then I believe they got up to 4-hour tapes. Those were the biggest tapes you could get. VHS starts at 4 hours and goes all the way up to 8 hours. Yeah, if you're in a high-tech video lab with expensive video diagnostic equipment and microscopes and x-rays and things of that sort, you can spot the difference, the technological picture quality difference between VHS and Betamax. Every fucking buddy else can't tell the goddamn difference. I owned both. I had a VHS VCR, a good quality VHS VCR, and I had a good quality high-end Betamax VCR. Not one of those rubbish top loaders early year models you see on YouTube. No, I had a good one. I had a good quality one from like 1984 when they were really making an effort, when they were trying to be competitive. And I had a RCA component cable video CRT television, 19-inch Sony Trinitron. So this was a good quality TV set. And I had certain movies on both formats. Among them was Star Wars is one I had on both formats. Back to the Future is one I had on both formats. There were a couple others. I tried. I compared. I couldn't fucking tell one from another. Walk into a room and throw a towel over the player, I can't look at it and say that's the VHS or that's the Betamax. And neither can you, and if you say you can, you're full of shit. You are full of shit. There is 10 scan lines difference between VHS and Betamax, and the human eye can't fucking distinguish that. you're talking 320 by 240 or 320 by 250 scan lines. Interlaced picture on an interlaced CRT TV. You can't tell me that you can spot the damn difference. So we're not getting into, this one had better picture, but this one had blah, blah, blah. No, we're not getting into that. We're just talking about the formats. So, by the way, these will be about 20-minute, 25-minute videos, just so you know, because there's a lot to unpack. By and large, in the beginning, Betamax tapes were blank. You could buy a Betamax VCR and a blank Betamax cassette, hook it up to your TV, plug your antenna or cable box into the back, get a picture signal to the player, and record from that video signal onto a tape to play back later. Time shifting, as it was known. This was the intended purpose of the invention. This is what they were created for and marketed as. Oh, and all you, before we go there, all you asshole dipshits who say, VHS had porn and Betamax didn't, ha ha ha, that's bullshit. I have seen pictures of video stores from 1983 that had porn rooms, and they had Betamax tapes on one side and VHS tapes on another. And you can go back and look at the history of the video releases. Betamax had porn. So shut the fuck up with the porn bullshit. That is a myth, and it has already been busted 1,000 times. So don't bring it up in the comments, you dipshits. Because it's not true, and it has already been busted. Now, initially, VHS players, VCRs, were less expensive than Betamax VCRs. This wasn't just because the Betamax did technically have a higher picture quality, a better picture quality. It had more to do with the fact that Sony initially, and I have to emphasize that, did not license the Betamax technology to other companies. They produced it themselves, and they didn't want competition. And JVC licensed it to multiple companies, and so there was more competition in the VHS market. So initially, you had more variety in the players. So you could have low-end players, mid-grade players, and high-end players. So initially, the cost of a high-end VHS VCR straight across with identical features to the same Betamax VCR would have been the same price. An $800 Betamax and a high-end VHS VCR would have been $800 as well. Just throwing a number out there. Where VHS was less expensive is they had mid-grade players that removed features that were less expensive, and they had bare bones players with hardly any features that were even less expensive. So this is why initially VHS was less expensive. And it is true, initially, side by side, Betamax tapes were 1 hour long, and VHS tapes started at 4 hours long and went up from there. So you could fit more onto a VHS than you could a Betamax initially. Eventually, Sony did license the technology to other companies, and I have seen Betamax players by other manufacturers. They exist. And eventually, Sony not only added more features to the Betamax player to be competitive with the VCR, the VHS VCR, but they also made the tapes longer. They found ways to make the tapes longer so that you could get more bang for your buck. Now, after a while, VHS and Betamax both came on the scene around the same time as LaserDisc. I'm going to talk about this when I get into the LaserDisc format, because dipshits are going to say LaserDisc failed because you couldn't record onto it, and VHS succeeded because you could, and that's also not true. LaserDisc was created specifically to be a home video format. You would walk into Sears and buy movies on LaserDisc, go home and watch them. You would buy a VCR, beta or VHS, buy blank tapes, and record Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or Sunday Night Football so you could go to church and then come home and watch the football game you missed. They did not have movies and TV shows and even porn on either format when they launched. They were not designed for that. That was not their intended purpose. So that had no bearing on the competition. When people wanted home movies, they bought LaserDisc. When they wanted blank tapes, they bought a VCR, either a beta or a VHS. So let's dispel that myth right now. However, because the LaserDisc market did exist, some companies, notably CBS Fox Home Video, who were big on the LaserDisc format, discovered that there was potential for a home video format on cassette as well, pre-recorded tapes. And they decided to go ahead and start releasing pictures, motion pictures, on video cassette. Except, again, the myth goes, well, VHS did it first and then Betamax scrambled. No, they did it at the same time. They came out at the same time because CBS Fox didn't pick a side. CBS Fox was like, we're just going to put our movies on whichever format and let the people decide. Also, there was no such thing as video stores back then, so there was no rental market. Back then, you went into Sears or Kmart or Macy's or wherever, and you paid $90 and up for a video cassette, a movie on video cassette, or $100 and up for a LaserDisc. So let's go ahead and straighten that up. If you were into both, you needed a player for home videos, or home movies, excuse me, and you needed a player for blank tapes. You would buy a LaserDisc player and a VCR. So a lot of people did buy both. LaserDisc had 12% of the consumer video market in its heyday. Blu-ray, at its height, only had 8% of the market. So Blu-ray is not as popular as LaserDisc was. So if you see Blu-rays and you think to yourself, Blu-ray is a success and LaserDisc is a failure, you fail at math. I'm just saying. You might not remember LaserDisc because you didn't own one, and you're probably saying that's rubbish because everybody owns a Blu-ray player. That's not necessarily true. While most people probably have a Blu-ray compatible optical disc drive in their homes, PlayStation, Xbox, etc., the vast majority of those people are using those machines to play Amazon Prime Video, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Netflix, etc. They're not going out and buying Blu-ray discs. You and me are, maybe, possibly, but the market is not. Now, the disc market is still dominated by DVD, but we're going to talk about that when we get into discs. I just want to dispel that myth. LaserDisc was more popular than people remember it being, because people have this weird idea that everyone had a VHS VCR and nobody had LaserDiscs or Betamax and, blah, blah, blah. And there's 1,000 other misconceptions out there that are wrong. And they get repeated and regurgitated on the internet all the damn time, which are false. Now, that's not to say eventually there didn't rise up a VHS and Betamax home video market, because it did, especially in the 80s, which gave way to the home video rental store. Not just Blockbuster, mind you. There was also Hollywood Video. There was also Family Video. There was American Video. And your local mom and pop shops. Right here. I lived in small towns. I never once in my entire life lived in a town with enough population to justify having a Blockbuster video store. Every video I ever rented was from one of those smaller chains that would open up in smaller towns, or a local mom and pop shop. I have no Blockbuster memories. I have never in my entire life stepped foot in a Blockbuster video. They didn't exist in my world. So let's knock it off with everybody went to Blockbuster Video, because they didn't. More people didn't go to Blockbuster Video than did. Because there were more video, population-wise, more people had access to other video stores than had access to Blockbuster Video. It's just Blockbuster Video existed in the cities, and since most people live in the cities, the people who live in the cities are the ones with the money to run YouTube channels, etc. They dominate the narrative because that's their memories. Well, cities and suburbs. But a large chunk of the population never even saw a Blockbuster Video. So, sometime in the early 80s, Sony decided to upgrade the technology in the Betamax player to be more competitive with VHS. And they created ED Beta, Extended Definition Beta. Now, I'm a little fuzzy on the details here, but essentially it's my understanding this was a higher resolution Betamax. Closer in picture quality to LaserDisc, but maybe not quite. This was a short-lived format that they quickly shelved, forgot about, pretended like it never happened, and then moved on. It just moved on. But because it did exist, JVC and friends responded with their own upgraded VHS format, Super VHS. Now here's where I have to throw another caveat out there. Super VHS, S-VHS, stands for Super VHS. This is a very specific type of VHS VCR that can record movies on VHS tapes at a higher resolution. This has nothing to do with S-video cables. Okay? So, I have to bring this up because idiots out there label S-video cables as S-VHS cables. They're not S-VHS cables. S-video stands for separated video. And all it means is when you look inside the plug of an S-video cable, it has 4 pins instead of 1 pin. Your composite video cable has 1 pin. It plugs in the back of the TV and you screw it in. 1 pin. All 3 colors, the black and white signal, and the audio are transmitted over the same cable. With S-video, you have black and white, and then the 3 color spectrums in their own pin. Inside the cable, you have 4 pins, each pin carrying a different signal. And you have a separate red and white audio cable for the audio. So with an S-video compatible device, you have an S-video cable for video and then composite for audio. Now, I bring this up because LaserDisc players have S-video slots or plugs on them, so you can use S-video cables on LaserDisc players. So do some Betamax players. These are not Super VHS Betamax players. That's bullshit. That doesn't even fucking register. Some VHS VCRs have S-video hookups. Those are not S-VHS VCRs. Those are VHS VCRs with S-video capability. S-VHS, Super VHS VCRs are a whole separate thing. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's impossible to find information on the internet, on Google, because dipshits mislabel S-video cables as S-VHS cables. So when you go to eBay and you type in S-VHS VCR or Super VHS VCR, you get normal VHS VCRs with S-video cables. Fuck, it's annoying. I spent 3 years scouring eBay shopping for a super VHS VCR, and I never found one. Because everyone I found that I thought might be, looking up the model number, I found out it wasn't. That pisses me off. Now, D-Theater, or DVHS, digital VHS, is a high-definition format, in a digital high-definition format. D-Theater came out in the early 2000s and was discontinued by the time HD DVD and Blu-ray came along. So that didn't even move the needle. Movies were released in small, limited quantities on D-Theater, and you could buy blank. You could use regular VHS tapes and record onto a digital signal onto your tape, because the tape was the same. They didn't require special tapes. It was just recording a digital signal on that magnetic tape instead of an analog signal on that magnetic tape. Because the tape is just it's just a strip of magnetic tape. There's no formatting on the tape until you format it. It's just like a blank floppy disk. There's no formatting until you format it. There's no file system on the tape. D-Theater digital VHS was 1080i. 1920 by 1080 interlaced picture. It was very short-lived. The last videotape format I'm going to briefly touch on is Video 8. This one is also incredibly difficult to find information on, because some people refer to it as Super 8 for shorthand, or 8mm for shorthand, which is false. It's Video 8. Video, the word video, VIDEO, and the number 8, Video 8. The reason why I have to explain this, again, is because 8mm refers to a film print, an 8mm film print. There's also Super 8mm film prints. So you have Video 8 and you have High 8. The letter H, capital H, lowercase I, and then the letter 8. High 8 video cassettes. These were only used in camcorders. Video 8, like VHS, VHS-C, Betamax, Digibeta, etc., 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 were used in camcorders and home VCRs. So you could buy a VCR that was a Video 8 VCR that you would take. It would take Video 8 cassettes, and you would either record on from the TV signal onto the cassette, or you could buy pre-recorded movies on Video 8 cassette, put them in your player, and watch them. Now, Video 8 is not as good quality as Betamax, and it is, for all intents and purposes, roughly compatible or comparable quality to standard VHS. So, Video 8s are harder to find, and they are rare, and cassettes, pre-recorded cassettes, movies on Video 8 are harder to find, and they are rare. I used to have a Video 8 VCR and a Video 8 camcorder and a High 8 camcorder as well, but that's another story for another day. I never could find a Super VHS VCR, and the D-Theater VCRs I found were too expensive for my tastes, so I never bought any, but I did have Betamax players. I did have VHS VCRs. I did have the Video 8 VCR. I had all the other stuff. I had LaserDisc, CED, blah, 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 blah. I had all the others, which I'll talk about in other videos. I just wanted to kind of dispel some myths and talk a little bit about what was available on these formats. Eventually, slowly, throughout the 80s, VHS did dominate, and Sony, in 1993, discontinued selling movies on Betamax. They kept selling the VCRs until 2000, and they kept selling the tapes until 2008. So the format didn't just die in 1986 like people will have you believe. But that's neither here nor there. It's neither here nor there. However, it is accurate to say more people had VHS VCRs and more movies were released on VHS and more blank VHS tapes were sold. So that is the prominent format most people had. As a kid, I had a VHS VCR. We did not have a Betamax. I had one friend who had a Betamax. So yeah, they were rare. They were not prominent in the marketplace. Now, I had an uncle who had a LaserDisc player, and our school had a LaserDisc player that we would show movies in class on, educational movies. And I saw more LaserDiscs, discs, and players and stuff growing up as a kid than I did Betamax stuff. And LaserDisc is more collectible than Betamax for some reason. So there is that aspect of it. Let me know in the comments, which one did you have? Did you have Beta? Did you have VHS? Did you have the rare Super VHS? Did you have a D Theater? Did you have the Video 8 VCR? What did you have growing up as a kid? Or as a teenager, or as an adult? Are you a collector? What do you collect, and which format do you prefer to collect? Let me know. Stay cool.